welcome to the next edition of Community Conversations, a production of the Capital Region Anti-Racism Training Initiative, Proctors, the Junior League of Schenectady and Saratoga Counties, and Samaritan Health Partners. We are very excited today. You might look a little different for folks. After 3 previous seasons, we are finally in studio. Welcome to our studio, Dr. Horton.
Oh, thank you, and welcome to our studio, Denise.
This is something else. Being together to do this show, the headphones, the microphones, all of it. But we're very excited. Our partners at Proctors and Open Stage Media have really been so supportive over the years of us. They're really the ones who produce it, who get this show together. And to be here with them in this studio to take our show to the next season and the next level.
Absolutely.
Is blessing.
Hey, thumbs up to the Proctors crew. We love them.
They are the best.
Oh, yeah.
Collaborative media friends are absolutely the best. So I can think of no better way to have our launch in the studio than somebody who truly understands what a studio is like. Our friend Randall Martin is here today.
Yes, Randall Martin, the producer extraordinaire.
He's a good friend of the show. He is Mr. Hudson Valley. He is a producer. He is a entrepreneur. He is somebody who he's a community organizer. A community developer as well in many ways. And so I'm thrilled to have him here today. Welcome, Randall.
Thank you very much for that kind and generous introduction. I appreciate that. So good to be with you guys, back to see you guys in studio. And you're right, this is one of my favorite programs, and I'm just pleased to be on it.
Well, thank you very much. So we've got a big show, Dr. Horton, and I'm sure you've got a lot to discuss with your friend and collaborator. So our audience can't wait to hear it.
Okay. Randall, I tell you, one of the most exciting things about having you on the show is because you always have the pulse of Hudson. And when we talk, you really can give us a feel, particularly in terms of whether it's political dynamics, whether it's entertainment, what have you. You know, Hudson is a type of place that I believe people kind of sleep on. And yet, as small as Hudson is, I see it as a vibrant and exciting little place, and it really is up and coming. I know there's a lot of change going on, but kind of give us a sense there as a community developer, as a leader, about what's going on in Hudson.
Well, I think from my perspective, Hudson has 2 dynamics. You know, one is it is a great destination for visitors, and we've been written up in the New York Times several times, and it's got such a great community feel. I think we're like the number 2 stop on the Amtrak behind Grand Central Station. So people are coming, and we've got a lot of traffic that comes here every weekend. And so people come to enjoy the bed and breakfasts, the restaurants, and the culture. And we have a lot of antique shops. There's a lot to see. But the other side of that is we have a vibrant musical community. You know, we have it was more so vibrant when we were at Club Helsinki, and hopefully they have just been sold. But they were a big venue. For those who don't know, they were a big venue in the area that had all these touring acts used to come here, and the curation of acts that they had was pretty fantastic. So there was another draw and destination. They shut down right at the beginning of the pandemic. And matter of fact, a show that I was going to produce was the last show that was slated, and we actually pulled the plug that night because of the scare with public assembly and COVID. And so that became a factor, but then they've been closed. And, you know, with the way that the market is, especially for restaurants, they decided that, you know, they really wanted to, you know, then move on to do other things. And so they sold it to a local developer here, and we've yet to know what he's going to do with it. But in the meantime, Hudson's been growing. There are other smaller venues that are coming along. We have a great festival event calendar, so there's always something at the community park. So it's a very vibrant, musical, artistic, creative community.
You know, I certainly have been to Hudson many times and actually have played in Club Helsinki. I'm very sorry to see that and to hear that it's no longer there. But again, I'm happy to hear that smaller, vibrant venues are emerging, and that certainly is exciting. Again, Hudson does have a very strong music community, but moving over a little bit to some of the other exciting dynamics and perhaps even some of the challenges. I know that let's see now, your mayor has been in for a couple of years now, I presume, and I know that there are a lot of dynamics going on. If I recall, wasn't there a challenge about folks from New York City coming up, buying up properties and that type of thing? And
Housing and gentrification is a huge issue. You know, you've had a historic population here that is very multicultural. I think that's one of the things that when people come to Hudson, you get a city vibe, almost a mini city vibe. There's a vibrancy and there's a lot of eclectic people here and multiculturalism that exists, which is really in threat because of the, you know, again, one of the results of the pandemic, people moved out of the city, they bought houses everywhere in upstate New York.
Right.
But here, they bought houses, and as a result of that, the property values, the rental values, you
Yes.
know, have gone sky high. So it's for traditional families, it's for the next generation. It's very hard for children to find a place here, never mind a home here. I mean, you have many homes that were. You know, typical to upstate, you know, a couple $100,000 for a nice home. That's not touchable here. That same home was probably, at least on my street, maybe seven, eight, $900,000.
my God, that's something.
You have New Yorkers coming in and they will buy a house for six, $700,000, gut it completely. They'll put $1 million into it and then move in. So that has escalated the market. It's put a lot of pressure on people about where they're going to live, where they can rent. Workforce housing is at a premium. You know, the legacy housing of sort of generational housing is really very tough because there was a lot of incentives for the people that lived here to sell their homes. This was a, you know, a quite lucrative time to do so. But now we enter into the economy that exists now, and if you are fortunate enough well, you can sell your home very quickly, but then you have to find another place to live. And how are you going to pay interest at the 8%, current 8% interest rate? In many cases, these high interest rate mortgage rates. So there is a dilemma. And so that's causing quite a bit of hardship. I know our mayor here has been dealing with a couple of developers. I'm on the planning board here, and we've been seeing a lot of hotels come here, a lot of higher end apartments. But the problem is, from a sociological standpoint, your home used to be the way that you conveyed your wealth and your sort of your inheritance to your kids.
Yep.
And now if you're renting, you can't do that. There's no legacy of wealth. And the other thing that happens is that if you should fall upon uncertain economic times, and you have a home, then you've got a year or two to sort of balance that out. You can refinance, you can do different things, you have options. If you're just renting, you're really on the bubble, and you may have a couple of months.
Sure.
That is correct.
And then the question is, if you lose your apartment, where do you go? You know, so there's a myriad of challenges. I know they're trying to deal with it. Again, we see a lot of new developments coming, but it is a unresolved issue that you see here. And I'm sure, I think the Capital District deals with it a little bit less, but it is definitely an issue here. I happen to find and think that Albany is it's an affordable city and a nice place to live.
Yes.
And probably a great value. Albany, Troy, Schenectady.
You are absolutely right.
Great values. But in order to move there, you have to uproot, you know, where you've come from. So it is a challenge that we're facing.
It is a very difficult challenge. It's happening all over upstate, but really at the front lines are Hudson, and then going into the Hudson Valley and into Western cities that folks had never really even heard of before, from New York City or Long Island, are now their home bases, and it does impact generational wealth. You've really hit the nail on the head. There's so many ramifications for what's happening right now with this housing market, and we get it all from Randall Martin. You know that, Dr.
Absolutely,
Martin.
absolutely.
a little
And-
something,
I see
everything.
it. I see it right here on ground zero, and it's tough. And it's also an issue of what I find perceived value. Being in
Mm.
housing, I was the head of the housing authority, and here for a few years, the chairman of the board of the Hudson Housing Authority. And there becomes a community question when you involve the equity of what people are valuable.
Right.
We're equating, and typically you equate, well, people with a lot of money
Right.
are more valuable and desirable. And I had to really establish at the housing authority, no, that's not true. I mean, people have a value no matter, what their income is. And your involvement in your community. There's a lot of intangible things that make you a valuable asset to your community
Mm-hmm.
beyond just what you pay for your house or what you make.
Mm-hmm.
So that distinction, is we're constantly have to be reminding people of that, because people think, well, if rich people come in, it's going to be better.
Right.
But this town, Hudson, is a special place. It was a friendly, nice community for a long time
Mm-hmm.
before other people moved in. So when you have New Yorkers move in and say, kind of feel like we made it what it is, like, no, you didn't. You moved here because it was
Well,
nice.
Gus,
You
because you
didn't
can,
make it nice.
right? The
And
restaurants
so
are great, and yeah, exactly. The parks are great, and the community and the people are even better. You've
yeah.
said it. You've said it.
And nice restaurants.
Oh, some of the best.
Oh yes, and I can see and appreciate what Hudson is going through. There's a lot of potential pain for the disadvantaged there, particularly when you're talking about displacement and housing being priced out of the market, and there are no easy solutions here. I know that when you start talking about housing, you might want to develop some housing for the disadvantaged, but then there's the concern with potential for crime, et cetera, et cetera. So there's so many dynamics going on. What do you see as the future for Hudson in this area in terms of trying to address this housing problem, at least in the short term?
Well, I think that we've been working hard and looking at having affordable housing in the development. We have two or three developments, and making sure that whatever it is coming in town has a affordable housing component. But that's, from a planning board perspective, we can't really control that. We can incentivize that, but people, if they have all their funding, they're going to try to create market rate apartments.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
So that's one of the dynamics that offers a real challenge. I quite frankly, I do see a narrowing. Hudson will transform. I think the money pressures, the financial pressures that exist, are transforming Hudson, and we are on the front line to make sure that Hudson still becomes a livable community. I
Sure.
travel, and there's one thing to see a beautiful tourist community, but you don't think underneath, how did it affect the people? How are the
Right.
people that live there functioning? And again, we as a local planning board, and again, I'm not speaking from the planning board's perspective, from my
Mm-hmm.
perspective, in
Yes,
that we
yes.
care about the quality of life of the town and of the
Right.
residents. And so we're trying to make sure that the full-time residents have the best quality of life that they can have. And that doesn't have to be in opposition to tourism, but it has to be balanced.
That's correct.
Business interests, community interests, everything has to be in a proper balance, in a proper perspective, and weighed with equal priority. And that's what I try to bring to the discussions. I do a lot. I'm on the radio a couple of times a week. I do a lot of interface with a lot of different community groups,
Mm-hmm.
do a lot of community advocacy in many ways, and so I that is one of my missions, to make sure that people understand, the value of our community, and remind them. And again, that it's not just all about the money grab, because what has happened in Hudson, I'm not a native to Hudson, I am from New York, but what has happened here is that it's been a boom or bust town. People have come and have great
Sure.
interest in this, but there's no guarantee that the tourism trends won't change to some other place for some
Mm-hmm.
Right.
arbitrary reason. So you have to make sure that you have a solid base for your businesses and for everyone else. Matter of fact, just yesterday, my neighbor told me that he's closing. He worked in a company for 9 years,
Mm-hmm.
an antique shop, and they're
Mm-hmm.
closing because their rents are too high.
Oh
Mm.
boy.
Yes, it happened yesterday. And I'm going to his place today. But I remember when those guys opened up.
Sure.
And I remember, and his rent, their rent was pretty expensive. It was, in the
Yeah.
middle twos,
Mhm.
and it's tough because Hudson, in terms of tourism, you only get that Thursday, Friday, and Saturday.
Right.
No, actually Friday, Saturday, some Sundays, some Thursdays if
Sure.
it's in the middle
In
of the year.
summer, yeah.
But it's a small window. But their rent is going to almost double,
Wow.
and they decided they can't do it. They can't make ends meet.
It's it's so frustrating to listen to this for those of us who do not live there but visit there. You think back at what was the backbone of Hudson? What was the reason people wanted to go there? It was retail, it was antique shops.
Hmm.
So many of my friends or people I would know would plan trips to go down, meet for lunch, and go antiquing. And so we've now priced out those folks from our community. The restaurants can't be far behind.
Hmm.
Well, but no,
And
to be
that's
sure,
troubling.
there are plenty of antique shops still there. I
Oh,
mean,
sure, sure.
there's no lack of, but I think the smaller guys definitely are having a hard time competing.
Yeah.
And again, when we talk about quality of life, there are 2 or 3 restaurants in town that a local can eat at and feel not gouged.
Hmm.
Because
Good.
remember, the pricing difference is if you're coming from New York, if you live down there, then you have a job. And I've been one of those people fortunate enough to have worked in New York
Yeah.
and lived here.
Hmm.
But then your money, your salary is higher.
Yeah.
There are very few local places, almost none, that pay a salary comparable to what you'd make in New York.
Sure.
Hmm.
So locally, you don't really have the opportunity unless you're a doctor or some high
Hmm.
level profession that pays a lot of money to make that same kind of money. So again, it's a challenge, and there's plenty of charm here.
Sure.
Sure.
Some plenty of glitz. There's good reasons to come to Hudson, but we're trying to make sure that Hudson is an equitable place
Hmm.
for all, and that is a huge challenge. In an environment where people are getting priced out and businesses are being priced out,
Mm.
we want to provide the support for people to stay here, families if they want to. There are programs if you want to fix up your house to allow you to do that. There are some tax breaks programs, so there are some supports, but
Sure.
not enough. And we're
Yeah.
trying,
Yeah.
and we're always trying to do better.
So when I think of Randall Martin, the other thing I think of, in addition to this community development, in addition to the role that you've played in government, whether it's housing, whether it's planning board, whether it's all those things, is also your finger on the pulse of the community in terms of events. You're an event planner extraordinaire, a producer. What else is going on in Hudson right now and into the Hudson Valley? Folks should get in the car and take a ride and really check out what's happening.
I think one of the gems that have emerged after Club Helsinki, it actually it came about with some really spectacular events on the street is Park Theater. Park
Yeah.
Theater is a small theater right by Grayson, a very unique restaurant there up on 7th Street. And wonderful jazz music, wonderful, just an array of different programs down there. And Shannon, my buddy over there, is runs a great shop. He curates good shows. I've played
Good.
there. That's one of the sort of gems that I think that's emerging in this time. It's a very small, uh, almost like personal venue. It's like
Yeah.
has 50 or 75 seats. It's very small, but it really hosts. It's a perfect place to see an intimate performance of a musician and really be able to, to be up close and really be
Terrific.
practically on stage. It's nice. It's a
You
nice.
don't want me on any stage, but that sounds great.
It
Yeah,
definitely
it
sounds
is.
great.
And you missed it. I remember years ago, you guys used to have a theater, and it was right there in Latham. That Circle in the
Circle.
Round.
Yep. Yep. Yep.
I love that place. I seen Shaka Khan. I love a small venue. They had the rotating stage.
Yep.
I just love a small place where you can really
Starlight, I think it was
feel
called.
the intensity of the musician. 'Cause
Yeah,
you're not
absolutely.
physically that far away. I love that. I would do that any day rather than a large stadium show.
Mm.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
But that is exciting that the Park Theater has actually provided some new excitement for Hudson. That's wonderful. That's wonderful.
Yeah, and there's a couple of other theaters, because now the brew pub world in
Yeah.
Hudson is
Oh,
exploding.
yeah.
So I'd be remiss if I didn't mention that.
Okay.
I'm not a beer drinker. I'm not a drinker at all. But if you love beer, Hudson has become a destination because you have Upper Depot, then there are microbrewery. You have Return Brewery, which is across the street directly, and then one block to your right on the other side of Warren Street, you have another brand new brewery, and then if you're downtown, there's the Hudson Brewery. So there's
Hudson, yeah.
4 within walking distance.
Wow.
3 really good
Upper
walking distance.
Depot's right there at the train station, or it's an old train
Yes.
building, right? Yes.
And it's a beautifully converted building. They spent a lot of time really redoing that building and making it a beautiful place. I know that Return Brewery is also going to remodel, but it's an interesting kind of funky
Yeah.
place for beer. There's a wonderful new Asian restaurant in that whole Upper Depot
Sure,
district.
yeah.
Art galleries. So there's a lot to do, I think, in the area. The new hotel, the Hudson Whaler.
Yeah. Oh,
Used
and
to
that's
be
one
a
of the
couple of
places you
different
said. New York Times. Read about it in the New York Times. The Hudson Whaler.
Yeah, we have. Speaking of New York Times, we have a restaurant that I haven't been in yet, but they were on my old block on 8th Street. When I first moved into Hudson, I moved into 8th Street, and they're right there on the corner. And it is rated, I think, one of the best restaurants in the country. So, hotel, I think it's Mutton. Restaurant Mutton. It's an unusual name.
Sure.
But forgive me if I got it wrong. But I think but their food is highly, highly rated. I think that you're seeing Hudson move to that next level. Like I said, I think that in a lot of different things. But again, we have to balance that with keeping the charm that we have, still making it a great place for people to live, and a great place for people to visit.
Well, Doc, that was a fantastic show. Randall Martin has more energy than all of us put together, huh?
And most importantly, Hudson has much more energy in almost any place. Oh, it's
Well, that's really it. I mean, you forget how many great places are there and so much to do. So, you're a busy guy right now, but we're going to have to take a ride down there and do one of our shows from down there.
Absolutely.
Because it's wonderful.
from a nice restaurant.
Exactly. Exactly. We know the guy to call. Well, Randall Martin is always welcome at this show. He brings such a wonderful energy and so much interesting content, and really his finger on the pulse of a very, very important community within upstate New York. So I'm thrilled that he was able to visit us. Doc, I hope you have a terrific week. I know you have a lot coming up.
Oh, yeah.
And we cannot wait to hear all about it. And I am very grateful to everyone who's tuned into our first show in studio.
Absolutely.
And join us Tuesday at 7 right here on Open Stage Media for Community Conversations. Thank you very much.
Absolutely.
Good night.
Good night.